Welcome to With Creative Company, a podcast where we dive deep in all things business as creatives. We give our personal take on things that actually move the needle and also chat with entrepreneurs about their experiences in running a business. I'm Jordan. I'm Mamie. Let's get creative. Hello. Welcome. Hi. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Great. How are you?
Good.
We have a new guest on today.
Yeah.
Super duper excited. Thank you so much, Carson, for being here and sharing your knowledge with us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, guys.
I'm excited, you guys. Carson and I go like way back at this point.
Yes.
When I was in high school, I worked for this t-shirt screen printing company for the college that Carson went to. And my I guess boss, you could call him whatever Andrew was, when I was working there, lined up Carson and his at the time girlfriend Holly to do a photo shoot for us. And we had a blast. It was so fun.
It was so much fun.
So then I reached out to them and I was like, can we just take photos of you guys where you're not in college t-shirts? And we did that. And it was also fun.
Yeah.
And then I took your grad photos and then your engagement photos and then your wedding and then their 3-year anniversary photos.
Yeah.
So we've just been hanging out for years So, and they moved to Nashville a couple years ago. So that's been super cool.
We just followed your lead.
Sure.
We moved too.
You and the 20 other thousand people that moved to Nashville that year.
Maybe we loved those photo sessions. It was really good. And you offered it for free. We were like, hey, we need some, promo materials for the whatever. But one thing led to the next. And we were like, no, we need to give you money for this stuff. You're so good. So we always love that. So.
No, it was great. And I mentioned this, I think, in our ideal clients and word of mouth, which is that after I shot Holly and Carson's wedding, I honestly owe them money because then I worked with 4 of Holly's bridesmaids. And I was
amazing.
like, this was the best word of mouth situation I could have ever been in.
That's great.
Yeah, so it was super fun. And all of their brides.
I love that.
All of them
One
were
little
great
crazy,
too, so.
random job in high school turned into income for your future.
I don't think I remember that you were in high school.
I don't think I talked about the fact that I was in high school. I was
I
hanging
thought
out with
maybe you were
college students. I was just
college.
pretending.
Well,
I was 16.
all right.
Maybe we'll always be the youngest person in the room and you'll never know it.
Crazy. Yeah.
That's a little bit true.
That's okay. She wouldn't tell me her age when we first became friends. And I was like, it's okay. I'm old, so it's fine.
Whatever.
No.
But anyway, tell us, maybe I think you're going to tell us a little bit about what Carson does.
Yeah. So Carson's a really awesome jack of all trades. You've got a million different businesses. So Carson is videographer for weddings and events. You do events as well, right?
I do.
And then very successful event DJ. And a really good one, by the way.
Thank you.
Super, super fun. Very good at directing a crowd and knowing when things are becoming slow and bummery. And then he also has a podcast called The Worship Keys.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Which has been super cool. It's worth checking out if you like music and keys playing and worship leaders and all those things.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you do? I think that's it.
That's about it.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. How would you describe yourself?
Well, I mean, I do a lot of weddings.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of podcasts now.
There you go.
That's
Wedding and podcasts.
I love that. I love being a creative individual. So I love that this podcast exists. So I love just the idea of being creative. And so even moving to Nashville was this hopes of I want to stay creative and I want to be around people like y'all and others that are just wanting to be creative. Yeah. Because I feel like if I stayed where we were in the areas we were maybe going to live in Alabama, which I love Alabama. I'm from Alabama. Yeah. There's just not a lot of people doing creative things. So it's good to be surrounded by people that are doing creative things.
Yeah.
So that's for me, I just didn't want to. I worked at Chick-fil-A for a while during, high school. Did you really?
Yeah,
okay.
well, my pleasure.
Peachtree City, because Georgia, you're from Georgia, that's Chick-fil-A is the woo. Anyway, I just knew I didn't want to work a structured 9-to-5 job. Not that anything's wrong with that.
Right.
My wife's a nurse. She goes in, she works, she does a great job, and God's called her to that. But I just know I wanted to be a creative person. So so how would I describe myself, which you would describe a lot of your guests, just being a creative person. I just want to be creative. I want like anything that I can do that I can hopefully still make a living and be creative and have freedom of like time and creativity. That's like a big thing for me.
I feel like that's so important too, because I know we talk more on the business side of things in this podcast, but being a creative is not easy, and it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not like someone's like, oh, I want to be super duper rich, I'm going to be a wedding DJ. You know what I mean? Like, it's not one of those things, like doctor, lawyer, whatever, that you maybe go into because you have a heart for serving others, but also because you make great money and it's consistent and you're always going to be needed and things like that. And so I think that's an important conversation too, is like where it starts at the heart of like wanting to be creative, whatever that looks like, and also like being able to make a living from it is just even the cherry on top, maybe for something.
Well, and I'll piggyback off of two things Carson said. One is just to hype up Holly for a second, because Carson's wife is like the sweetest, most gorgeous person ever, but she's also like very structured and very like on top of things. So when you say that she was probably meant to be a nurse, that's probably
absolutely
like kindness and brains blended together. Great.
Absolutely.
But I feel you on like, I wanted to move from a small town also on the creative end of things, because not that everyone would end up this way, but I felt like I saw people who were talented and good at what they were doing, but because they were in such a small town, it was almost like people acted like they were way better than they were. And I was like, you know what? I want to fight to be good.
Right.
And like, I felt like I was very humbled moving to Nashville, because I went from being like the person that everyone was like, wow, you're the best photographer ever, to like, oh yeah, I have 50 friends that are photographers. Yeah. How are you going to make that work? I felt like that was a great experience, but I feel what you're saying with like, I wanted to be pushed to be creative instead of just settling into well, I'm a photographer and I'm just automatically successful because I'm the only one.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there is something to be said too, like being, one of few in a smaller town. There's a lot of opportunity when you move to a bigger town too.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like maybe avenues that you could go down, like podcasting or, what wedding DJ, video, like all these different things you can do that may not be available in a smaller town like that.
Absolutely.
So it's like maybe easier in some ways, but not really, because it's like, I don't know, there's just more opportunity in a bigger town, I think. But
it makes you better, Yeah.
Like
when you have 50 other photographers, like you were saying, like it sharpens you, but also you can collaborate, and everything doesn't have to be a competition. Like when you're in a small town, sometimes when there's only 2 or 3 of you do kind of feel like you have to fight. But then when there's 50, you're almost like, okay, well, it's almost humorous now. And we're all just like trying to be better at our what we're doing in our field. But
I totally agree. So you are a bit of a jack of all trades. Do you feel like one of the businesses that you run is more of your focus than the others? Or do you feel like that's shifting as time goes? Like, how does that feel right now?
Yeah. So I do a lot of weddings. Last year, I was humbled and fortunate enough to have 44 wedding contracts, which was
awesome.
Wild.
It's amazing.
Never even reached 40. And so to reach 44 was like wild. Very humbled and grateful for that. And that's my full-time income is weddings, doing weddings.
Is that DJ?
DJ and video combined.
So the both. Perfect.
Yes, both of those. So, and then podcast world has been really awesome. Started that last April. And so we're getting close to 1 year, and it comes out every Wednesday, and I'm super like, I just love doing that and meeting other keys players that are just like fantastic, can just rip up a piano. I love playing piano.
Okay.
And and I've written songs and produced songs, and I love music in general. And that's what kind of got me into DJing and playing music. But I love composing, arranging, reharmonization, all this stuff. But being around other keys players has really just like lit the flame of like music again. And I love that. I love collaborating with other keys players for that. It's really cool to showcase them. But for weddings, weddings is like 95% of my income. So I have produced for a few artists, independent artists last year.
Okay.
And one artist, her name's J. Lisa Little. Shout out to Jay. She's in Montgomery, Alabama, and we did some gospel specific songs.
That's awesome.
And it was a great EP. It's called The Clay, and incredible musicians that made that happen. And we recorded it, and tracked it, sent it off to be mixed. Another guy named Jeff Pitzer mixed the EP. So I have an audio production master's degree. It's an MFA degree from MTSU.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
So I learned studio things, audio, it's, and visual things from that grad school degree, but also through experience too. But weddings is definitely like the thing that actually keeps me not having to get another job.
Right. Yeah.
So weddings is definitely the main thing, and everything else is just very small, 5 or 10% of the income.
Mhm.
But
I
I
think
still
we're
love,
both
still
similar.
very
Yeah.
special. But
Yeah. That's awesome. And who knows where it could go, That's the
Right.
coolest part. So this is a
Right.
little bit sidebar question.
Okay.
What made you go into more wedding DJ, videography, and this podcast instead of maybe like being a live musician? Because you know what I mean?
Oh,
Everyone
yeah.
moves to Nashville to like be a musician and play music and do all the things. So
Right.
was there like a moment where you decided, or did you just kind of find your way, or?
There wasn't really a moment I decided. I think there weren't really many opportunities for me to do that. So it wasn't like a hard decision. It was pretty easy because I was already getting booked for weddings on Saturdays. And then I was actually on staff at a church on Sundays.
Cool.
And I never, really enjoyed the bar scene. And that's a big thing in Nashville and other places. And so like I never really wanted to do that because a lot of the live music is in like a bar or something like that.
Yeah.
And I just that's just not what I did a lot,
Well, and you've also had your DJ business for a long time. Like you've been doing that since like early college, right?
Yes. And Brendan also, he's a killer DJ. He can mix it up.
Yeah, little different type though.
Yeah. That EDM, right? Is he more EDM or
House music?
The house music?
Like,
Okay.
Yeah, he's more like vinyl records. Having a good time versus like structuring an event.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I think it's so easy to make fun of a wedding DJ. And we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Not of course on a podcast, but like wedding anything can be you can make fun of that. But yeah, and wedding DJs, I've being the videographer sometimes, I'm like videoing and I'm thinking, all right.
You're like, where did that happen?
How did this happen?
What are we doing here?
Yeah,
There's a lot of stories,
Really
but-
can like make or break an event.
Totally.
Like in a way that you wouldn't expect.
And I think there's like, they're either really good or really bad. There's not much in between.
Yeah. And it's just like any kind of thing like that. It's kind of subjective all the times. So many times I've gotten people come up to me while I'm mixing and we're doing a reception. Hey man, like can you play some good music? And then some older person will come up and, hey, can you play some of that good music? And what they mean is like, their preference of music. So like sometimes if I'm playing some oldies like, some Bee Gees, and then I'm playing some Dancing Queen, Staying Alive to get the older crowd up there at the beginning, and then some young person, hey, can you play some good music like No Hands or something, start playing some what they mean is like, I want some of the rap music,
Yeah.
And then some people, sometimes the bride and groom will have very differing opinions on what the music is good. Like a lot of times, especially in Alabama weddings, the groom is very like, I love country music. And sometimes the bride, this happens a lot actually, where the bride really loves like pop and rap music. And
The groom is like,
it's like this
Morgan
rival. Yes, we have to keep mixing it up. But anyway, so like things are very subjective, but as far as flowing and keeping the flow going is a big thing.
Also, like I feel like you're as a DJ good. Like Carson like goes out into the wedding dance floor and like teaches people whatever line dance is playing. He's out doing it with them so that you don't not know what you're doing.
Oh man, don't always do that, but sometimes.
Okay, at Holly's friends' weddings.
Yes. Especially, and the more people I know, I'm like, let's just go out there.
It's so much fun though. I love it. I think the coolest part about being a part of a wedding is like you really are truly a part of someone's like best day ever.
Absolutely.
And it is the coolest. That's the coolest part about our jobs, I think, for sure.
Absolutely. Never take that lightly,
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess to dive in a little bit more of the business aspect, I'd love to learn more about this, I guess, the podcast that you started, and like it's done really well, and kind of what gave you that idea? How did you get started? I don't know. Let's like dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. So the podcast is called the Worship Keys Podcast.
Okay.
And I knew I wanted to do a podcast on something music and worship related. So, and it's not explicitly just like a religious podcast per se. It's not only, I've had some guests who are not affiliated with church or God or anything too. Do we just talk about music, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But what inspired that is really, I wanted to start a platform that just talked about piano and worship in church world. And there wasn't really anything out there.
It's very niche.
Yeah, it's very niche.
Very niche.
And I was like, when I was starting this, like my father-in-law was like, "Are you sure? Like that's like it's just for piano, like just for pianists, like just for keys players?"
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you know. But the thing is, like, I think it's good to niche down and be good or be a platform that serves someone specifically. And when I did that, like and I didn't know if it'd be successful or not, and it's still growing, like it's still, you know, getting there. But I think I just wanted to just collaborate with other keys players. I mean, that was really the heart of it. And I've been learning so much. Like I've learned so many more techniques and riffs and inversions and chords and voicings and things. Just for me personally, it's like my own personal piano lesson with someone who's better every
That's
every
how I
episode,
feel about our
you know?
podcast too. I'm like, we talk about things that I'm learning and being like thankful that I'm learning them from these experts that are like good at what they do.
Exactly. So that's how it started. And you know, but when you think about it too, with pianists, there's church there's a church, especially in the South where we are, there's a church every corner.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in every church, there's at least going to be a pianist because back in the day, 20, 30, 40 years ago, the piano was the worship music. When you're singing the hymns, it's the piano or maybe organ too, right? The organ and piano playing the traditional hymns. And now with the modern music, you have a lot of the full band stuff going on, but you're always going to have a pianist somewhere. And in every neighborhood, there's some old lady or person learning the piano or whatever. There's always some people playing the piano, and that's, you know. And I was like, there are pianists everywhere, so I'm like, this can relate to so many people.
And I would say that if you're a musician, you've probably started on the piano
Right.
or know how to play the piano. So
Right.
My husband's a musician, like my brother's a musician, and I feel like a lot of the times that you go back to the basics of like a keyboard or piano.
Yes.
And it kind of sets the foundation for like the rest of music. So
Yes,
really you
totally.
are reaching a lot of people.
Yeah.
Not just like people who play piano.
Yeah,
but-
and if you weren't specific with the messaging, which I gotta say, so speaking of Holly, I gotta credit Holly too. But she, when I launched this, I was like, I kind of wanted to start an educational platform that helped teach something, and I knew I was proficient. I studied piano like in college, and I could read music and write music and stuff, but obviously, like I said, all my podcast guests are way better than I am. But like I knew I could teach piano, and I was like, well, you know, I see other people have platforms that they teach and it do really well, and I'm like, you know what, I could do this as another way during the week because I have extra time during the week that I can invest to teach people. So when I started this idea, I brainstormed different ideas of the names, and one thing that Holly was like, no, you do not need to name it that. But I like, one thing about me is I just take an idea and I run with it and then just like go full throttle. And then Holly will bring me back to reality and be like, okay, let's think about this.
She's your center.
I want to
Yes.
I want to know what the bad name was.
Well, it was,
Yeah.
well, you know, like it had the word coach in it for one. So it was like the worship, I think it was just like the worship keys coach or the worship piano coach or something like that. And that works for some people. Not if you have the word coach in your name, that's fine. But then I'm so glad we didn't go with that. Well, for one, because I went on Canva and I made a logo, and I'm not a graphic designer. And it's this nasty or lightish blue of this piano outline that Canva gave me, and it says like the worship keys coach, and on this it is this hodgepodge, very busy logo thing. And I was like, oh yeah, that looks good. And it's like a piano and the worship keys coach.
Amazing.
And I just made the page last April before even all the podcasts were going. And I was like posting tips. And it was before I even like my lighting was even that good.
I think I vaguely remember that.
Do you remember that?
I think I vaguely
You
remember.
probably do.
amazing.
And I was like posting all these like
I don't think I
tips
noticed that
and-
it changed.
Yeah. And Holly's like, okay. She's like, Carson, I think you need to change this. So I was like, all right. So
She's like, I love you.
yeah, it's like does not
Gotta
look
go.
very professional. And I think, you know, that makes a big, I think branding is a huge thing that people don't talk about. I think the idea is the most important, but then how you deliver and push that out to the world is also like second importance, like how you present yourself to the world. So I talked with Jordan Epperson is his name. And he's a great graphic designer in town. And we sat down with him and he's like, you know what, man? Like I would just call the platform like Worship Keys, you know, just like it's the Worship Keys podcast. And he created the logo, which is it's like a W, but it looks like piano keys. And it does this stepwise motion, so it looks like the white and black keys combined.
Very cool.
So it's like a W for worship and then also steps. So it's like, well, if you're wanting to like teach them like, hey, do this, they're like steps. So he's like, why don't we do
Building
this? I was like,
blocks,
oh, like building blocks. So I was like, oh, look at him go. So he made the logo and the whole thing and a template for like episode takeaways and all this stuff that I didn't even, he's like, you're going to need this. We did a photo shoot with him and he designed it like what the thing should. Anyway, the branding was fantastic and I didn't even think about the branding and he brought it to life. And so I have to credit Holly for saying I should do it and Jordan for executing on that. So they did a lot to make it look way better than it was going to be and even sound better. And it wasn't like, it was not going to go. I'm so glad I didn't call it that. What I did, it was just the Worship Keys. And it's a big collaboration. If you go to the page, it's just, it's like, who even is Carson? Because he's not even here. So it's like, I'm not even the person of authority on the page saying, hey, do this. It's like a big collaboration. It's the brand.
Which has that been interesting to have one brand where it's like, I'm not even there, and then have another brand where it's like, I am 100% what this is?
Yes.
Has that been like an interesting thing to have to handle
Absolutely.
as a business owner?
Absolutely. And I'm actually rebranding my whole wedding company right now.
Gotcha.
And with Jordan Epperson. and I'm super excited about it. And so, but yeah, we're calling the new wedding business name will be called Circle Weddings.
Okay.
And circle like the ring, circle, and then theologically, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, perichoresis, and the circle dance in the Jewish tradition, and like this all what circle means in a wedding, and like circle of like these are your closest friends and family. Yeah, and I know you've talked about like elopements. You love elopements and like small weddings, so intimate, like the backyard weddings.
Yeah.
So wedding days are all for your closest, best family and friends that you want there, and like collaboration of things. So I'm rebranding my wedding stuff to be like more of a collaboration thing. But for DJing, it's me because I like being the face of that, and I can't escape that. You know, wedding DJs are very personality driven, and that's okay. And I mean, photographers can be too, because I know we chose you too because your personality. We're like, we love what your products are, but we also love your personality.
It is such an interesting concept because I think you can go one of two ways. You can be more of a brand, and then you can be more of yourself. Yes. And you're like, which one are you selling? Which one do you feel most confident in? Like,
absolutely.
I don't know. That's
well, and like with my branding, we've talked about this before, but like my business is just my name with no photography, no extra words, nothing. Because if someone's hiring my business, they are just hiring me. And I like to make that really clear.
And that's good.
And like my logo is as close to my like writing signature as I could get. And then like a piece of my hand tattoo. Which is for my marriage, because me and Brendan both have these and they match. But it's like, it's funny because I definitely brand that way, but then sometimes I'm like, I don't feel like a personality hire. But I guess I am.
Yes, for sure.
You know, versus like with you, it's you and Seth. So it's a completely different process.
Yeah, it is.
So what made you kind of, I feel like in your business, and we've talked about this beforehand, like Carson is very good at like deciding what he wants to do and doing it. So do you have like advice for people on how they can do that, on how they can look at their branding and see that it needs to be updated and then like find the steps that they need? Like, how do you feel about that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. No, I think for sure I have a strength and many, many flaws that follow with that people like Jordan Epperson, my wife Holly, they help me with. And it's good to recognize your strengths and weaknesses for sure. Yeah. I think setting a clear goal and vision is very important with being a creative and having your business. You have to. And there are a lot of books that I could recommend.
Recommend them.
Yeah, recommend them. So, let's hear them.
One of my some of my favorite. I have a lot of different favorite books in different categories, but for like business wise, some of my favorites is The E-Myth Revisited.
Okay.
The subtitle is Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work. And it's a really good, they talk about different business myths and how to combat that. And what I learned from that is like, there's 3 categories that you're naturally you naturally tend to fall under as the business owner. And that could be the technician, the manager, or the entrepreneur.
Okay.
And it's good to like recognize what you naturally kind of go towards, because as a business owner, we're all supposed to be the entrepreneur type. But some of us, a lot of reasons why those small businesses don't succeed as much as they are is because we never actually get into that entrepreneurship type spot. And I was like, oh man. So when I read this book, it was very eye-opening, because I was like, when I read this a few years ago, I was like, you know what? I'm a really good like technician. So I'm like really good at, prepping the music on a wedding day and mixing it and emceeing and doing all the things. Not very good at contracts, invoicing, and taxes and all that kind of thing.
I would probably fall into the manager category way more.
Really? There you go. Manager's my least bit. I don't know about you. What's your strength with the technician,
I want to know
manager,
the entrepreneur. What's the definition of the entrepreneur?
So the entrepreneur is really the person who's setting the vision and the goals. And in recent years, I've fallen under this more so because I'm like, oh, I want to be that, and I want to. So I've tried to like get myself to more there than the technician. But the technician is more as a technical person. I'm going to do all the grunt work and do everything that entails. And
I think I'm the technician.
You're technician?
I think Seth's the entrepreneur.
That's good.
And
That's
I need
good.
a tax person. You know what I mean?
Yes.
No,
need a
Seth
business
is the
manager.
entrepreneur. We were driving home from the airport yesterday because Seth was our Uber. He was so nice.
Yeah.
And he was like, I just need to get us on some retainer contracts. So
That's
that
all
we
he
can
talks
do
about.
It was CEO energy.
Yes,
There
he
you
has. Yeah, he's a big dreamer,
And
which
you
I
need that.
love.
You
And I
need that.
love because it was like cool when he joined my business. And I think we did expand because of that. Because
Yeah.
I was kind of in my lane of like, this is what I want to do and this is how I'm going to do it. And like,
Yeah.
if I could just get there, and it's nice to have that, the
No.
dreamer. It's great. I want to read that book.
It's a really good
That
one.
sounds
There are a
really
few
good.
others too, like Who Not How, really good about like collaboration. Like you
Okay.
can't do it all. Who can help you? Like
Yeah.
if I didn't have Jordan Everson help me with my brand, oh my goodness, like I would be looking like I don't know what I'd be looking like. A little, I don't know. But it's just without him, it's just crazy. I mean, he transformed the whole brand of the podcast, which was great. Like the content was going to be the same and the conversations were going to be the same and everything like that. But how it was presented and put out there collectively on the Instagram and YouTube was like totally transformational. Like
And
what
it
he
probably
did.
affected the people who listen to it. Not only that, but the people that you've been able to get on
Yes.
your podcast
Yeah.
too, which is amazing.
100%. And then a book called Buy Back Your Time, which is
Okay.
really good. It's kind of what it sounds like, once you have a profitable business going, like how can you delegate or automate some of your stuff?
Yes.
Like with AI or with an
Conversation.
assistant or just someone to help you with those tedious tasks that you don't necessarily want to do, that are just like tasks that you have to do.
Yeah.
There's so many things in our business that aren't really creative.
Right.
We want to be creative, but then there's so many things that aren't as creative. But and I want to continue to do like the creative work. So it's like as an entrepreneur, how can you help automate or delegate if you need to, or eliminate some things that you don't need out of your business,
Yeah.
so that you can stay creative and be that entrepreneur. So
And
like-
not get burnt out
and not get burnt out
by
yeah.
the things that you don't like to do.
Exactly.
Because it goes
Exactly.
back to the creative, like
yeah.
they're hiring you because you are a creative, because you are an artist, because of the way that you do things and how you do them. And so it's like if you lose that, then you're not going to have a business.
Right.
But you're not going to have a business without the things that you have to do. So it's like figuring out
Well,
that balance.
And also to touch on this, I
Yes.
think because you've discussed like using AI, and you are apparently very good at that.
Mhm.
But knowing when you need to do that versus when you don't is
Yeah.
such an interesting conversation.
Mm.
For example, I feel like working in a wedding industry, all these wedding industry platforms are rolling out like AI features that you would just never want to use.
Yeah.
Like AI replying to your original client email with like these awkward responses that show you didn't read it.
Right.
right.
Versus there are times where you can use AI, or like, I guess another example would be like your logo. Like you could use Canva and it's like pre-designed thing that it kind of slammed together for you and you pretended you made, or you could hire someone who's an artist and really good at it.
Yeah. Or who listened to your vision and
yes.
manifested it.
So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, like I said earlier, I'm a little bit of a Luddite. I am not the kind of person who is like, ooh, new technology, I'm going to go use it. which probably slows me down sometimes. So for you being on the opposite end of that, you're like, oh, this is cool. How can I utilize it?
Yeah.
What does that decision process look like for you?
For sure. Well, there's one other book I wanted to recommend
go for
too,
it.
and if you want to like get things done, I want to be motivated. Ready, Fire, Aim is a great book.
I've heard that.
Yeah,
You've heard
same.
that? Okay,
I haven't read it.
Y'all need to read it. It's kind of an older book, but it's like wow, I need to go do this. And the number one thing he talks about is selling your product. So like you don't. I've heard so many people. They're like, I want to start a business, but my brand's not ready. I don't have the business card. I don't have the website. I don't have things. Well, and y'all can attest to this too. Like, that's not the thing you need to worry about at first. You need to worry about, like, is your idea actually good and will it succeed in the marketplace? And that's number one. Like, if you're taking photos or doing video, if people aren't going to pay you $100 to do it, then why are you even thinking about a full brand? Just try to do what you're doing and sell it successfully. So they say as quickly as you can get your product to the marketplace and get that validated, then you can structure your business later. Not to say that you shouldn't continue to polish and make your product better.
Right.
But for example, I started the Worship Keys Coach, whatever I called it, before the Worship Keys podcast was a thing and branded, like a full month before. And so it didn't kill me. Like, it didn't kill me to do that.
It didn't hurt you. It didn't hurt your,
It gave you some practice. Like, and it gave you, I guess, a little bit of a platform to bounce off of when you were like, hey, can we, interview you? Can you come on?
Right,
I'm sure that was kind of helpful in some ways.
For sure. And then wedding stuff, I DJ'd a school dance when I was 14 with my buddy Andrew.
Oh, wow.
And that was our first thing. We did middle school dances, and then we started doing proms. And then we did our first wedding together when we were both 17.
Okay.
And then we did like a few more when we were 18. And then like we were 19, 20, they started to like be like, oh, we booked 6, 8, 9, 10 weddings this year. And then it kept growing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you start, is you kind of validate, we're, getting paid at these smaller levels. And then you just keep upping your game and hopefully getting better at what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And then you can morph your brand too over time too. Like, you don't have to stay where you are, but the Ready, Fire, Aim book is incredible, because it's like, if I want to start something, like if I want to start a business that's like, oh, I'm going to pick out these different outfits for people and go thrifting for people or whatever. Don't wait for the right website or social media and all these things to be in place. Just find 2 or 3 people. Hey, do you need an outfit? Okay, let me go thrift for you. Like, what do you think this is worth to you? And let them pay you $50 or whatever it is, and just help validate your idea. Yeah. And then you can structure your business later.
No, we talked about that in one of our prior episodes on pricing. It was like, if you can't charge a ton of money, but you're not going to make a ton of money, like if it's $50 you didn't have, then why wouldn't you just go ahead and do it? If you wanted to do it, and you're not at the point where you're having to like really keep track of everything, you might as well.
Yeah, totally. But on the line of AI or technology, I guess I should say, I love AI. Yeah, I love AI. I don't know, any of you listening, you guys should use more AI in your business, because, and here's why, and this is a creative podcast, so we don't want AI to take over our creativity. I'm sure we've seen the memes. They're like, oh, I want
watch
AI.
out for your job.
Yeah,
it's coming to get you. I'm like, no.
No, I think AI is so powerful in so many different ways. And just from what I use, I told my buddy the other day, I was like, oh man, because I was prepping, I got a wedding this Saturday, had a wedding last Saturday, and you still have to manually get all the songs. And by the way, there's new music all the time. Mm-hmm. I tell people, like, oh, does the music just keep rotating? Well, yeah, probably 80-90% of the songs are kind of the same. A lot of weddings. But there's always new songs. Like, there's just, especially first dances, and like, there's that new Post Malone song from this past year is a new father-daughter.
Makes you cry.
Yeah, like there's always new songs. There are always new songs. I'm always downloading new songs, and like a new rap song or some album that came out. Like, you're always getting new music. So when I'm prepping for a wedding, like if there was a brand new Beyonce or Taylor Swift or whatever album, I got to get the whole thing, because you never know who's going to love whatever song that just came out. So I'm prepping, but I was just like, if I had AI that could prep this playlist for me, that could scan the questionnaire that I already had and put it in there, because the skill for me is knowing when to play it, mixing it, beat matching, like flowing with the crowd.
The important part.
That's the important part. But me taking 2 hours to go buy all the music, load it into my playlist, go into Tractor and
Yeah.
download all this stuff. That's the nitty gritty that if that could just be automatic, that would be awesome. DJ software is really awesome. It's come a long way. My dad was a radio DJ. He was a radio personality for years.
So cool.
So he, they played top 40 music. And so he would just talk in between breaks. It wasn't talk radio, so he didn't talk a ton, but he would, mix things in and out, say a few little 1 or 2 minute breaks and go on to the next thing. But back in the day, when you really would use vinyls to play and you had the 2 decks, you play one song, you play another, or you have 4 decks and you cross fading between those and trying to beat match. And you're actually like using the physical techniques to slow down the track slightly.
That's what Brendan
So
enjoys.
cool.
He loves it. And then you use your outside decks to, if you want to scratch some more and things like that, like turntablism and scratching. And I love to scratch, but I use a controller now because it's so easier and convenient. So my controller's like this big, and I use a software called Tractor Pro. And there's different DJ softwares out there. They pretty much do the same stuff, just like different cameras do the same things, different lenses. But I love Tractor Pro. My buddy Andrew, we started on Tractor Pro a long time ago, and it's awesome. But the thing about DJ software now, and it has been past few decades, is it pretty much, before the word AI, artificial intelligence, was the thing, it was already using the technology to detect all these things about the song. So in the DJ software, it shows you the BPM, how fast or slow the song is. It talks about the key of the song. So now I can use that to my advantage when I'm mixing in and out of wobble, which goes great with Party in the USA. Like those intros and outros, like they're around 96 BPM, and it shows me on the software right there. And then like if you can see the relative keys, you can manipulate them within the software too in your controller and just mash them together. Back in the day, you'd have to know more previously before you did that in real time.
Yeah.
So like that's an example. I think this is amazing that there's this technology. So I use it every Saturday to where I can see all the BPMs in my playlist and know that all these Pitbull songs are going to go, like I can mix Cha Cha Slide with, which I don't love playing, but if I have to play it, I will.
Yeah.
But like Cupid Shuffle goes great with Hot to Go.
Yeah.
To the right, HOTTOG. Right. You have technology to tell you these BPMs are both at around 140. So
what I'm
bash them
learning is
together.
that a lot of wedding DJs don't utilize that technology well, and that's why their songs just go.
Right.
You're saying it's actually pretty easy, and they need to get it together.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Sorry, we're not trying to hate on anyone.
No.
We love you guys.
Yes. And I do love and there are a lot of people that use actual real vinyl too that still use this technology, but they just love the feel of the vinyl. And they've digitized the way that they love the feel of the turntables, kind of like people using a keyboard with the fully weighted keyboard. They love the feel of it, but it's still digital. There's so much to go in with DJing, but I love that. So AI, it's kind of been around past few decades, but now it's like past 5 years just blown up.
Yeah.
And I use it a lot for editing reels for podcasts, and I use Descript, and we talked about this previously before we started when we hit record, but I use Descript to edit, and it just really helps me edit my reels a lot faster. You can save templates a lot faster. You can tell it, hey, make a blog post for me, help me with this YouTube description, and all these things that it's like, okay, the YouTube description wasn't something that I creatively did, right? So like if we're talking here, if you use YouTube descriptor to categorize this conversation, AI could do that. And then you could read it and be like, oh, I didn't like how it worded that. And you just edit it. So for me, that's not taking away creativity. It's allowing me to actually stay doing the creative things I want to do.
Yeah.
Like I want to be contacting podcast guests, and I want to be filming with them and talking with them and collaborating with them in real time, face to face, like we're doing right now. Instead of on my computer, oh my goodness, I gotta tweak this, I gotta edit this. I would rather be out collaborating with people than tweaking my YouTube descriptions and my blog posts and all these other things. And now with social media, I don't want it to write my social media caption per se. Some people do. I don't, because I want to interact. I want to really interact on Instagram with that. So there's so many things that AI can do, but I don't want it to do like the creative things.
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to do the tedious things, like there's not a tool that I know, but if I could find a tool that put my DJ playlist together,
Hey, it's
based
probably
on
going
the
to come out
questionnaire.
after this comes
You could
out.
just
It's probably
make
going to be
one.
like, someone's going to make it. You
Someone's
know what I
gonna make
mean?
it.
Someone's going to write some AI something for that to happen.
Exactly.
So what I'm hearing you saying is
You need to buy back your time.
buy back your time.
Yes.
You maybe spend a little bit more time on the front end learning these technological and what works for you, right? 'Cause
Right. Totally.
it could be different for everybody, but for you and your business, kind of spending that time to then free up time later. It's like having an assistant or having somebody on your payroll that does these things for you, but now it's automated and things like that.
Yes. And with photo editing, which I don't edit photos. I don't take photos. I will video. But with photo editing, like the amount of times you have to go through the photos and say, "Oh man, there were 5 photos of like pretty much the same thing."
Yeah.
Like that takes a lot of time. But if AI could not just, I don't want AI deleting your photos, but if they could help you cull in a way that
They
was
do.
like,
I don't like the way that most AI calls. Actually,
oh, it's not good. Is it?
It's not that it's not good. It's that if you're a photographer who has a very specific way you shoot and you want it to look very crisp in a certain posed way, you can use AI and it's going to find the best.
Yep.
Oh.
If you're a photographer like me and you like some kind of wonky stuff and you're looking for more than just the very basics of the image, AI will get rid of images that I would actually utilize in some way.
Okay.
So like
okay,
for
okay.
me, I can't like culling is a huge part of my artistic process because there are photos that might not seem that good, but I want a part of them or I took them for a very specific reason.
Okay.
And I need those.
I like that. Okay.
Versus like if I were a photographer that was much more like studio oriented and just needed to know
Right.
like, oh, if someone's blinking, it's gone.
Oh, yeah.
Great. And and I could probably utilize it in some other ways, but I feel like for photography, for me, like every single step of editing is incredibly artistic.
We don't use it
That's
either.
That's good. I love that.
I think
love
it can, again, finding what works for you and your business and making the most of that.
Yeah.
But like as a photographer, there are tons of things that I could utilize more technology on. Like we talked about like QuickBooks and Honeybook. Like Honeybook creating my invoices and contracts and it all being just imported. That's not really AI. But being able to just click the package and then send a contract and fill in some basic info. Like I used to literally retype. I used to retype so much stuff.
Yes.
In fact, last week I had to send someone some custom pricing information and it took me like an hour
Forever.
to type it all out because I had to think it through so much.
Yeah.
And I was like, I used to do this for every wedding.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Like,
Right.
and now I don't. I've saved so much time. It's
Yes.
worth the several $100s, whatever it is per year.
Right.
For sure.
Maybe not worth their pricing increase. I've got to figure that out. But
This was great. Thank you so much for all of your knowledge and wisdom. We do have one last question that we like to ask all of our guests. It's a little bit off the cuff, so sorry if we catch you off guard a little bit.
No problem.
But it's basically if you could tell other creatives one thing, what would it be?
Oh man. One thing, just one thing.
Just one thing.
Just one thing, man.
yeah,
That's it.
you can only choose one thing to tell someone.
I would say don't lose sight of your why, your purpose, of why you're creative and why God has called you to do what you're doing. I would say keep that at the forefront. There's a lot of technicalities, a lot of things we can talk about, and methods and technicalities, and but just remember your purpose and your why. Like for me, it's when I was a younger kid, like I had an encounter with God in a very real way, and for me, like a lot of that goes back to that, and my relationship with God is like has to be number one. And if it's not, there's just a lot of things that get just not aligned right in my life. So keep whatever your main why, and which I know a lot of people have that same advice. So just keep your why number one. For me, it's to glorify God and bring glory to Him first and foremost. So if anything that I'm doing is too creative that it just brings attention to me too much, I want him to be glorified. And so I think if I was going to say one thing, it would be that, for me is to always keep God first, because he is my why and the purpose behind what I do. And so keep your purpose and your why like number one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
One.
That's really great.
I love that.
Thank you so much, Carson.
Yeah.
It was so great to have you on.
Thank
We
you.
hope everybody has a great rest of your week, and
We'll have you on again for like AI
you, guys.
breakdown.
Okay.
yes, I would love that actually.
Thank you guys for having me on. Thank you all.
Yeah, and make sure you check out the Worship Keys podcast. At the Worship Keys on Instagram.
Do you have like website or anything else?
I don't have a website. I have the domain bought, but it's not. I need a website developer. I need someone who knows how to make a website.
You heard it first.
And then your other account is CD Bruce Productions, I think.
Yeah. Well, so there are multiple accounts floating around there, but personal one is CD Bruce 3. Productions is CB Productions.
But you're changing that.
I'm changing it up.
You're rebranding.
There's another one just for wedding films, like CB_films, but I'm all rebranding that kind of stuff.
So which one would they go to find all the others?
I would just go to my personal CD Bruce 3, and I have all the different things tagged on my description. Awesome. So CD Bruce 3, and then you can find the Worship Keys or Productions, or
perfect.
You can connect with me that way. So
that's great.
Yeah, and you can find us on Instagram at with.creativecompany. And then we release these on Spotify and YouTube and Apple. You're probably on one of those already, but in case you need the other ones. So yeah, cool.
See you next time.
Yeah.